I'm on the road
Hi, how you
today,
doing,
so
Leila?
yeah, I'm good. I'm on the road, but I'm happy to speak with you earlier in the month, well, mid-month. And but let's get right into it. I see that the first one for June is something we both experienced. I guess I did it virtually with Exomad Green, that wonderful shot of the corn. So number one, Exomad Green is a mega big deal, which it sure is. Tell us about that.
Incredible. I mean, Exomat, a company that obviously we've worked with personally. We just released a film, The Power of Biochar, which Matthew and yourself have been heavily involved in, and which is going wild on YouTube. So for those who haven't checked it out, please do. And it tells the story of Exomat, which is the world's largest CDR company, and they just secured the first megaton carbon removal deal for biochar, the first megaton deal of a global south company. And so there's a lot of records in there, and they're on track to become the first company to deliver a megaton. And every single ton of carbon from that deal is going to be tracked with Carbon Futures MRV, which is also a first. Kind of a huge deal like this where every single ton is going to be tracked cradle to grave. So there's a lot of firsts. I'm very, very happy about this. I've met the team. I spent a week with them in Bolivia early this year. And yeah, excited for what this means for the sector.
It's very exciting. I spoke with Hannes actually last week it was, and I'm about to drop that conversation. He was very pleased with that. And what I think is very helpful is that image that you chose from the film, and you can see with that one shot, what biochar can do for farmers, really without saying anything. You can just look at that picture and see how it helps farmers grow their crops in a healthy way. So, and
And it has
also
the
obviously
whole thing has
remove carbon.
so many positive stories, right? Like it's not just the carbon removal; it's the health impact, it's the societal impact, it's the increased yields. There's so many things that are happening as a result of this project. That what Microsoft is buying is the carbon removal, but what that enables is a whole range of positive consequences for society at large. And so I think they estimated that around 250,000 people are going to benefit from this in that area. So it's a big deal, and it's something that I think we can be very proud of. And I hope that it gives hope to other entrepreneurs or people who are setting up their own biochar projects, of which there are many people around the world, and they see that it's possible to really scale and to also get someone like Microsoft to buy for hundreds of millions of dollars from you. So
Hmm.
yeah, hopefully some synergies there.
Yeah, well, it's a first is always what it is. It's a first and it's a lead. So everyone should follow that lead for sure. Um, okay, number two, EU considers how to bankroll CDR, and you're saying that CDR is facing a valley of death, which we have been all talking about how, it was great to get started, but now we have to keep going. And so how's the EU going to help with that?
I mean, the way that people are looking at it is in the early 2020s, you had this boom of CDR companies being founded. And it's been going reasonably well, but we're facing some hard years right now. And the salvation in many ways, or the end game for CDR, at least in many geographies, is compliance markets. But they only come in the 2030s. And so we have these 5 years now, essentially, where it's not really clear where significant demand can come from. It's quite splintered. And against this backdrop, the EU has estimated that in Europe, you need around up to 6 billion euros of funding. And they're essentially devising how could we fund the next 6 billion in the next 5 years. They held a workshop. They discussed a whole range of options, especially kind of a carbon removal fund, as they call it, but also public procurement, buyers clubs, all sorts of different things. And yeah, it was a really exciting workshop with great inputs from all around the world. I think it generated a lot of interest. Obviously, the big question is where's the money going to come from, right? And this is, I think, where the rubber hits the road. Is it's all good if we have these workshops, we have these discussions, but until there's money on the table, it's kind of just theory, right? But still, a very promising first step, and hopefully they know something that we don't, and the money
Mm.
will magically appear in the next couple of months or years.
Yes, without money, things don't move forward. And so shout out to anyone who has money or has muscle to create policy to help with that. So call number 3, call for tech openness in the EU ETS. And you're saying this is extremely important. Why is that?
It is, and actually, we're recording the 10th of June, and just today the campaign went live. So I just mentioned how compliance markets are kind of the end game, right? And the biggest compliance market in the world by far, 86% of all compliance markets is just one, which is the European one, the EU ETS. And they currently have a consultation open for what integration with CDR should look like. It closes in early July, 7th of July. And so far, they are suggesting to only integrate direct air capture and bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, which I think would be a big mistake for many reasons. It's limiting in terms of volume, in terms of price, but also it sets a precedent of picking winners early on instead of setting the bar, the quality bar, and then being technology neutral and agnostic in terms of who passes that bar. And so this campaign calls for that agnostic approach and essentially set the bar, which is the CSCF. We have that in Europe. That's going to be up and running next year. Whatever passes the permanent removals bar of your own tool that you devised as a European Union should be good enough for the ETS. And we managed to get, I was just updating the list. We have 150 companies signed up. I'm sure by the time this airs, it might be 200, 250, but there's big momentum behind it. And we hope that we can convince policymakers to take a different approach.
Why are they leaning into DAC and BECS? Is that because they just know it better, or is there
are many reasons. I've been asked this question a lot as part of this campaign. And I think there is an objective lower risk to integrating DACs and BECS because we already have in Europe what's called the CCS directive from 2009, essentially a regulation that mandates liability for CO2 in underground storage. So we already know how to deal with leakages, with monitoring. Like we have rules for that. We don't have that for biochar. We don't have that for enhanced rock weathering. So I understand that DACs and BECS are the lowest hanging fruit. And now we can decide, okay, we're just going to pick that forever, or we're going to face the reality and say we have to develop equivalent legislation for the other things, right? And so I think this is the main reason that I hear. But then obviously there's also lobbying interests, CCS industry. There are other reasons as well.
right? I would imagine so. But yeah, go ERW. Come on, you don't want to leave them out. So
Exactly.
and others, of course. Yeah. Number 4, CDR funding is just a drop in the bucket. That links to your earlier conversation. But so how you've been running the numbers? What does this look like for us now?
So an argument, I just kept reading arguments online, on LinkedIn, hearing in podcasts that CDR is getting all the attention, CDR is getting all the funding, and that we should focus more on emission reduction. It's a very common argument we hear. And intuitively, it just didn't sit right. I was like, this can't be. So I actually checked the numbers. I checked how much in 2024 went towards the green transition, how much of that went to carbon removals. And the numbers are, in the best case scenario, we're looking at 0.2%. It's likely much, much lower. It's likely way less than 0.1%. And now, if you bear in mind that we need CDR to do around 10% of the job, I would actually say you could argue the exact opposite of what people are saying. We need by 100 times more investment in CDR than we actually have. So this whole argument, we should be spending less on CDR, more on emission reduction, frankly, is completely untrue. And so, yeah, it's something that I needed to get out there because it just, and I have something I can reference now whenever I hear this argument come up again.
Yeah, and I think as per usual, it's entrenched interest in other things. I won't name what that don't want any attention pulled away from their projects. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but it's also, I think with CDR,
yeah.
it is fair that like CDR is getting a lot of attention, right? Like a lot of decarbonization is not sexy or new anymore. It's a lot of the stuff we know we've been doing for decades, but we're doing it at incredible scale. Like if you think about electrification, if you think about renewables, it doesn't get the same headlines when a new 100 megaton facility is set up for solar compared to a DAC facility. But that's where the money is still going, right? So I think there's an attention versus money dissonance that people are not picking up on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad that you brought that out because it's always the devil's in the details, as they say. And that actually does sync with number five, haters gonna hate, because what happened with Climeworks in Iceland, that Icelandic article wasn't looking at the details, right? So what were the details on that?
Yeah, I mean, on the face of it, Climeworks won their first two facilities, which are both in Iceland, underperformed. Climeworks was very public about that from the beginning, but there are a lot of people who not just don't like, who really hate DAC. And then by proxy, there are also the people who then don't like carbon removal as a whole, right? And so they jumped on this opportunity. And what really shocked me, and one thing that I also commented in my own statement, was how all these haters, with few exceptions, come from within the climate bubble. They're not even the climate change deniers. Like, yeah, there were a few, but the people who were really going to town on these stories and trying to pile on and kind of drown DAC, Climeworks, CDR, are people from within climate. And so while we're having our petty fights about whether dollars should go to this or to that within the green transition, the people outside of the bubble are just laughing, right? They keep on emitting, polluting, increasing oil and gas exploration while we're having these petty fights. So, yeah, I think we need to move on.
I think people have, right? I think a lot of this has been
Yeah.
unearthed, and Jan did come out with that statement, and we've talked about it, I think, in the last one even. Uh, and I think, like anything, it's the beginning of a technology. It's not net negative the moment they start building the plant, obviously. It'll be net negative in its life cycle. So it was a bit unfair. But hey, you got to, it's to be expected, I would think.
Yeah.
Number six, yeah. So number six, the U.S. CDR roller coaster, and it again about the details. Everyone's like, oh, everyone's fired, everyone's not fired. What's happening with tax credit and the big beautiful bill? So, what is happening from your perspective, or at least right now on June 10th? Because things are going to change probably on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
I think in the next episode, we'll actually have some nice things to talk about when it comes to biochar in the US. But as of today, the focus, what we can say is that the one big beautiful bill, which is likely going to pass the Senate from what I understand, is firmly cementing the role of 45Q, of the tax credit that has helped especially direct air capture take off in the US. So that's likely here to stay. And once this bill is passed, we kind of know that for sure. There's a lot of stuff in that bill that's not good for the climate. So this is a very narrow view that I'm taking here, purely focused on 45Q. Beyond that, I would say there's a lot to complain for climate. And one thing, for example, that we're seeing as well now is that I think it was 24 CCS projects, not carbon removal, but CCS projects have been cut. Were $3.7 billion, which is a huge setback because the US was really going to lead on carbon capture and storage. This was IRA-funded projects in Republican districts. And I was quite shocked to see that they were going to cut all of those projects. So, yeah.
Well, we'll
overall,
see
it's
if that
still
actually, yeah.
shaky.
Well, there's a lot going on with that bill, and those are carve-outs, right? So who knows? Because if whatever district that was getting those projects are probably fighting right now as we speak to keep them. And so until the bill passes, you really don't know what actually is going to happen. And there's other things in there that have nothing to do with what we're talking about that people are very deeply upset about. So I couldn't predict what's going to happen with that. But I'm assuming that the Louisiana project and the one in the Permian Basin, are those in that?
No.
Are they part of that? So that's still in place then. That direct air
Yeah,
capture
that has been
allocation.
paused but not cancelled.
Oh,
So it's been
interesting.
paused but
So
not
it's probably
cancelled.
under review.
Yeah.
It's probably under review. Okay. So yeah, there's going to be,
Yeah.
I can just imagine the activity on K Street. Just a lot of people lobbying like crazy right now to keep their projects. Okay. Interesting. Okay, number 7, we're at the VCM virtuoso that you should know, Alexia Kelly. Tell us about Alexia.
I mean, most people already know, probably already know Alexia, but she's been in the carbon market space for around 20 years, longer than pretty much anyone else I know. And she's also been one of the key drivers behind the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Markets, the ICVCM, which is a body that is trying to be kind of a rule setter for what the carbon market should look like across the world. And yeah, she's a very prominent voice. She's a great speaker. She provides great content. So anyone who's kind of interested in voluntary carbon markets in particular, the direction they're taking, should give her a follow.
Nice. And number 8, more people that you're highlighting. 2 new heavyweights have entered the ring. And that's your show where you pit things, which I know you're not. You're doing just to be compelling, not because you think that it's one or the other. So tell us about your next
Yeah,
showdown.
no, this is actually this is we did a debate about biochar versus DAC a couple of months ago, me against Martin Freimüller, the CEO of Octavia Carbon, and it went through the roof. We had incredibly good feedback from it, and we're still getting it. And so we decided to do another debate, and this time it's the very controversial topic of reduction versus removal credits. Not reduction versus removal in general climate action, but really credits and in the voluntary carbon market. Because this is a decision that buyers are facing, right? They can choose between these types of credits, and they're spending their budgets on a portfolio of these different types of credits. And we got some really. This time I'm not in the ring myself. Last time I was. This time I'm going to moderate. I'm going to referee. But we got Renat Heuberger, who's the founder and ex-CEO of South Pole. And for those who don't know, South Pole kind of created the voluntary carbon market, really, and enjoyed both the highs and the lows of what happened in the last 15 years in the voluntary carbon market. And Renat has been at the forefront from the beginning. So he is probably the best person I can imagine to talk about reduction credits and take their side. And then we got Marta Krupinska, who's the CEO of Curate, who's, again, I thought about who can I put in a ring against Renat, and few people come to mind, but Marta is definitely one of them. And she lives and breathes carbon removal. So it's a debate. It's deliberately kind of a bit antagonistic, but it's really for the purpose of education. People who saw the last one will have seen that this is not to kind of put the other one down. It's really to just provide an entertaining, informative format for people.
Yeah, conflict is always engaging, but with the idea of educating,
Exactly.
so
And
that's good.
people like it.
Unfortunately, yes. Number 9, become a EU, storytelling. Become an EU policy pro in under a week. So you created a course, and I guess 500 people already took it. So what's in there?
I mean, I get probably weekly requests to explain European climate and especially CDR policy. And it can be quite difficult for people to get their head around. And especially now that the US is kind of taking a step back and Europe is heating up, there's a lot of focus and attention on Europe. And it's complicated. What do all the acronyms mean? What is a trilogue? How do the different institutions work? But crucially, what can you do as an individual company to shape the process? So I put a course together. As you said, over 500 people already took it. And it really takes you from absolute basics all the way to essentially knowing what it means and how to act. And yeah, so anyone who wants to understand it better should go ahead and take it.
Nice. And last one for this month is the CDR conversation catch up number 10, and you are highlighting a couple of podcasts. Or just one?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, Ross's. Yeah,
no,
Ross.
several,
Actually,
several.
yeah. So several, and I'm going to be talking to Ross actually soon on his
Nice,
podcast about
nice.
Legion 44. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Ross Kenyon, he's in an episode recently, he said he's done almost 500 episodes, which is just incredible. And I really like, he has a very non-traditional approach to podcasting and just follows whatever he thinks kind of will make sense for that day. And I really like the diversity of the show, which is called the Reversing Climate Change podcast. But I also wanted to highlight the Carbon Removal Show, which is a fantastic podcast that just released a mini series on policy, which is kind of 4 episodes on policy. And then the other 2 is the Coming Clean podcast, which started recently, focused specifically on carbon markets, and one that's not CDR, but really climate outrage and optimism, which is something that I think many people will already be listening to, but it's a fantastic weekly podcast. So yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I thought I'd highlight a couple that I regularly listen to.
Nice, like it. Yeah, I mean, because as this industry grows, it needs more voices and just continue to talk about it. I don't have an extra one this week, but one of my next projects that I actually have got development funding for is on trees. You know, a lot of people were so mad that I didn't put trees in Legion 44, but it was very clear that it wasn't going to fit in the frame of Legion 44 of additional removal. So we're working on trees and how that works as interconnected. I just spoke to somebody earlier today about how it can help direct air capture scale while it does some work in the short term while we get CDR going. So it's a variety of voices, a variety of pathways. That's not just even in additional removals, but the whole complement of carbon cycle activity, I guess, is the best way to talk about it. So that's coming up.
Nice. You'll get to visit some very beautiful places, I assume. So,
yeah, I mean,
jealous.
Well, you can come along anytime. Kalimantan, probably. Boreal for sure. A lot of the tropical, Congo, but this is early stages, so it'll be a while, probably a year from now at least. But it was wonderful to speak with you, and I'm looking forward to July. And yeah, everyone hang in there. It's going to be okay. So.
Thanks, Leila.